Marvel recast General Ross after William Hurt passed away, but they didn't do the same with Black Panther after Chadwick Boseman died. This might seem like a double standard, but it wasn't. When we heard the sad news about Boseman's death in 2020, Kevin Feige and the team had a really tough decision to make. They had already announced Wakanda Forever, and had big plans for T'Challa in the MCU. In an interview Joanna Robinson did with Boseman during the filming of Endgame, Chadwick mentioned that Black Panther was going to be one of Marvel's most important characters in the next saga. We don't know if T'Challa was going to be the new leader of the Avengers after Steve retired and Tony died, but he was supposed to be part of the new Trinity with Spider-Man and Captain Marvel. In the end, none of that happened, because fans didn't like Captain Marvel, and Marvel had issues with Sony over Spider-Man's rights. But in 2020, recasting Boseman made total sense to keep T'Challa in the MCU. It wouldn't have been the first time a big franchise changed actors between movies, without any explanation. Nolan changed Rachel halfway through his Batman trilogy, the Wachowskis recast the Oracle in The Matrix, HBO swapped Dario Naharis in Game of Thrones, and War Machine and Bruce Banner were recast in the MCU. But this was a bit of a different situation. Unlike those cases, Marvel didn't face any scheduling issues or creative conflicts with Boseman. It was super easy for Feige to recast the Hulk, because Edward Norton didn't pass away in the middle of filming The Avengers. Norton argued with everyone on set and wanted to control the scripts, which Universal and Marvel Studios didn't like, so they replaced him with Mark Ruffalo, and the issue was solved. Boseman's case was a lot more sensitive. Feige announced they wouldn't replace him with another actor, and wouldn't recreate him with CGI to continue their original plans. To respect the actor's legacy and his portrayal of Black Panther in the MCU, they decided T'Challa would die in Wakanda Forever as a tribute to Chadwick. Also, Beau DeMayo, the showrunner of X-Men 97, said he wasn't allowed to use T'Challa in the show, even if it was set in another universe separate from 616. Marvel permanently blocked T'Challa after Boseman's death. It kind of makes sense. If they hadn't done that, it would have felt disrespectful to Boseman, right?
Well, not really.
Marvel could have done what Warner did in Harry Potter, when they replaced Richard Harris's Dumbledore with Michael Gambon after Harris passed away. Harris's death was really sad, but Warner wasn't going to change the entire story from the books to get rid of Dumbledore, who had a key role later on. The same thing happened with Spartacus. The lead actor died of cancer, just like Boseman, and they recast the role for season 2 and 3 instead of canceling the show. But Marvel didn't do that. Just for the record, I don't think a character has to die just because the actor who played them passed away, especially when the character is fictional and not based on the actor. Ask yourself this: if Ryan Coogler hadn't been able to direct Black Panther 2, should they have just ended the franchise with one movie? Should Multiverse of Madness not exist because the director of the first movie couldn't return for the sequel? If Kevin Feige got sick and couldn't continue overseeing the MCU, should Disney shut down the most successful cinematic universe in history?
Well, I don't think so, mister.
This might sound insensitive, but these superheroes are bigger than any one person. They're bigger than their creators, writers, illustrators, directors, and also the actors who play them. I get that everyone has their favorite Spider-Man, and that it's hard to see someone new playing that character, because it feels different. But Avengers like Black Panther showed up in the comics before many of us were born, and they'll keep having adventures long after we're gone. If you ask me, I would have preferred that they found an actor worthy of Chadwick, to honor his legacy. Not by killing off the character, but by letting T'Challa continue in the MCU, with the key role he deserved. But that's just me. Even if I don't agree with Marvel's choice, I can understand why they did it. This had never happened before in the MCU. Maybe Marvel and Disney want to honor the legacy of every actor who played a character in this universe. So, if another actor passes away in the future, they might kill off their character too, and avoid recasting.
Oh.
Now, all this seems a bit hypocritical, doesn't it? This explanation fell apart when Marvel announced that Harrison Ford would play General Ross in the MCU. They recast an actor who had died, even though William Hurt played the character since Phase 1, before Boseman ever showed up as Black Panther. Hurt passed away in March 2022, the same year Wakanda Forever came out, but Marvel didn't even wait a year to recast General Ross. In fact, Harrison Ford had already signed a deal with Disney before they held D23 in 2022, but they didn't announce it because they didn't want to overshadow the new Indiana Jones movie. So what's the deal? It's okay to respect Boseman's legacy, but not William Hurt's? Playing devil's advocate, maybe Boseman's performance was better than Hurt's, and that's why they didn't want to replace T'Challa. Both did great in their roles. But let's be real, General Ross could have been played by any actor who can pull off the role of a strict, grumpy military guy. Hurt did a good job, but it wasn't a once-in-a-lifetime performance. I mean, no disrespect to the actor, but I think Ford did a better job in Brave New World. Maybe it's because his character had more emotional weight in the script, or because he got more screen time than in all his other MCU appearances combined. But this version of General Ross was spot on. It would have been a shame to miss out on Ross's transformation and his future appearances as Red Hulk.
Red Roar!
Yes!
But it's not like Boseman was irreplaceable. His version of T'Challa was amazing, but it wasn't like Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight. I get why Hugh Jackman is seen as irreplaceable as Wolverine. He made history with that role, and now Marvel is stuck with him until he's 90, because some people don't want to see anyone else as Wolverine. I also understand why fans are so attached to Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, and they don't want to see new actors as Iron Man and Captain America, even if they come from different universes. After all, they were the main characters of the Infinity Saga, and helped make these characters pop culture icons. But Boseman played Black Panther in just 4 MCU movies, and was the lead in only 1 film. So that excuse doesn't really work. But there's more. Maybe General Ross was too important of a character, and Marvel couldn't lose him, no matter what happened to the actor. Nate Moore, the producer of Wakanda Forever, hinted that we'll see Red Hulk in future MCU movies. I can't say for sure if he'll show up in Thunderbolts, but I'd love it if he did. At the very least, I'd like to see him join the team later on and become the leader, like in the comics. Plus, we all want to see Red Ross fight Green Hulk on the big screen. It would be the perfect chance to see Savage Hulk again, even if all that happens after Secret Wars. I'm willing to wait to see an adaptation of Jeff Loeb's Red Hulk arc, and it would have been a pity to miss out on that in the MCU because of what happened to the actor. But you could say the same for T'Challa. There were so many stories left to tell about Black Panther, like Enemy of the State, his wedding to Storm, or the secret invasion war with the Skrulls. I know there were also tons of comics to adapt for Iron Man and Captain America, and that didn't stop Marvel from killing them off or retiring them in Endgame. But at least Steve and Tony got to lead 3 movies each. There were 1,000 stories left to tell about Black Panther, because Ryan Coogler himself said that he had already finished writing the script for Wakanda Forever when he found out about Chadwick Boseman's death. Obviously, T'Challa had a key role in the first version of the movie, because he was supposed to be the main character. They changed everything after Chadwick passed away, and that's how we ended up with the version we saw in theaters, where T'Challa dies off-screen. So that's no good either, but there are still 2 more reasons. One reason for preserving Boseman's legacy was that he was known as a genuinely good person. He had an impeccable reputation, and everyone who met him said he was an amazing person who never had issues with anyone. You can't say the same about William Hurt, who faced some really serious accusations from his ex-wife. Those accusations were so bad that I'm not even going to mention them in this video, because I don't want to get demonetized.
I don't do it for the money.
If Hurt were still alive, I'm pretty sure they would have recast him, since Disney wouldn't want to deal with a scenario like Warner did with Ezra Miller. We've already seen how they handled the Kang issue. They kept Jonathan Majors in the role until he was found guilty, and then they wrote him out to avoid bad press. They sacrificed the main villain of the multiverse saga to avoid PR issues, and replaced the character with Dr. Doom to keep the hype alive for the upcoming Avengers movies. If the accusations against Hurt had led to a trial, I have no doubt that they would have fired him too. And if Marvel felt the actor's legacy wasn't worth preserving because of his personal issues, then it makes sense that they wouldn't feel the need to honor his character either. In that case, it's understandable why they recast General Ross. I'm not saying this was the best course of action, because I'm not the head of a multi-million-dollar movie studio. I'm just trying to find some logic in what they did. And if that doesn't satisfy you, there's one last explanation: the importance of the character. Black Panther was the lead in his own movie, an Avenger, and a fan-favorite character in the MCU. Maybe your aunt didn't watch every Marvel movie and wouldn't remember the actor's name, but if she saw Black Panther, she'd definitely recognize him. Come on, he's an Avenger with Panther powers. If they had changed the actor for Wakanda Forever, your aunt would have noticed, just like everyone noticed when Warner replaced Grindelwald in the last Fantastic Beasts movie. Even people who weren't big Johnny Depp fans, or who didn't follow his trial with Amber Heard, noticed the change. But that wasn't the case with General Ross. Hardcore MCU fans know every actor and character who's appeared in this universe, but a lot of casual viewers didn't even know who Thunderbolt Ross was until Brave New World came out. Ross made a short cameo in Black Widow and Ant-Man, and he was involved with the Sokovia Accords in Civil War. But he hadn't been on screen for more than 10 minutes in any Marvel movie since The Incredible Hulk, which came out 17 years ago. I'm pretty sure your aunt didn't even know who the character was. Maybe because she didn't watch all the movies in Phase 1. And even if she did, she probably doesn't remember much about them. Marvel knew this could happen, so they made sure to add a lot of exposition in Brave New World to catch everyone up on what happened in The Incredible Hulk back in 2008. But if you didn't remember that movie or who General Ross was, no big deal. I'm sure you didn't want to set the theater on fire when you saw Ross played by a new actor, mostly because you didn't remember what the old one looked like. And if you did remember William Hurt, you probably liked Harrison Ford's performance, since for the first time in a while, he actually looked like he wanted to act. I doubt anyone would have preferred that they killed off Ross off screen, because then we'd have missed out on seeing Red Hulk in theaters. But wait, how would this saga have turned out if Marvel had recast Black Panther? Their original plans for the multiverse saga were completely different, and if they'd made the same choice they did with General Ross, phases 4 and 5 would have turned out another way. We explain what could have happened in this video over here.
Big Ross!